Hi there, adventurers. Today we're going to be taking a look at Demco's Air Force One supplemental braking system. So now that you've got your new motorhome and you're planning on traveling across the US and seeing a bunch of things, you know that you don't want to drive this thing everywhere. It's going to be kind of a pain to drive through a fast food drive-thru and stuff like that, so you want to bring a vehicle along with you to make your travels a lot more enjoyable. When you're doing that, you are going to need a slew of things to be able to bring a vehicle behind your motorhome, such as a tow bar, a base plate, and a lighting solution such as diode wiring. But the braking system probably can be a little bit intimidating because there's a lot of different options, and they are specific for various options that's on your motorhome and your vehicle. And one of the biggest factors is your motorhome, whether it has air brakes or hydraulic brakes. Demco's Air Force One is specifically designed for motorhomes that have air brakes and provide a truly proportional braking activation of your vehicle here when you hit the brakes inside. And we're going to be taking this on a little cruise and showing you some examples of driving it, how a very, very light application in the motorhome to just kind of ease slowing down a little bit doesn't apply the pedal here at the back, but once we go to be more aggressive with it, it gets more aggressive here in the vehicle to follow along with it. And we take that all the way up to kind of a panic stop situation so you can see that all activating and feel how smooth it is. Now, some states that you'll travel through will require that you have a supplemental braking system on your vehicle. Our Air Force One here will fill that role and ensure that you're safe for both you and your family and everybody in that state. So now that you've decided to flat tow your vehicle behind your motorhome, there's 5 main components you'll need when setting that up. You'll need your tow bar, which is the connection between our motorhome and our vehicle. Your safety cables, which is a supplemental connection in addition to your tow bar. You'll need your base plate, which is the connection point on your vehicle that your tow bar will attach to. You'll need your lighting solution, which typically is going to be your diode wiring, but we do have a couple other options, but I highly recommend the diode wiring. That takes all the lighting signals from your motorhome, sends them to the lights here on your vehicle so people know your intentions when driving down the road. And lastly, you'll need your supplemental braking system here, which again applies the brakes in your vehicle when you hit them in your motorhome. And here's a connection point that's kind of exclusive to our Air Force One. This is actually taking air pressure from the motorhome and it sends it back here to our braking system to activate the brakes. That's a lot different than most of your other braking systems out there that typically use an inertia sensor in the vehicle and an electrical signal sending back the brake signal from the vehicle to tell the vehicle, hey, the brake pedal is applied in here because you've got brake light signals coming in, and then the inertia sensor in the vehicle will detect vehicle movement, and if it detects that the vehicle's slowing down, it will activate the brakes appropriately. Typically those have an adjustment on them so you can tweak that inertia sensor to get the appropriate amount of pedal activation. The problem is with air brakes is if you're using like an engine brake on this and going down a hill, it could potentially activate those inertial ones the whole time because it's sending out a brake signal. Especially if it's a motorhome that's after 2008, it'll send out a brake signal when you're using your engine brake, and that can cause brake drag when going down those hills, and it could potentially damage your vehicle. With the Air Force One, we don't get those lighting signals. We don't have to worry about that inertia sensor and activation of our brakes in that situation. So that's really why the Air Force One is the most recommended system here for motorhomes with air brakes, so that way it's going to operate the way it's intended to in all of its driving situations. If we take a look under the hood, we can see the magic box that takes the air pressure from your motorhome and properly sends it to the cylinder that's located on the pedal that will actually apply the brakes. What's neat about the Air Force One here is it gets that air directly from your motorhome and sends it out, but it also is tapped into the vacuum line for our brake booster, so that means the pedal's applying with power assist as well, so it gives it more force than it would if it didn't have this, so you can get better stopping power inside of your vehicle here, and it just makes it more natural in feel. When driving this thing around, it does feel very natural. There's never a point where you're hitting the brake and it feels like the vehicle's pushing your motor home because it's not applying the brakes hard enough in here. And there's also never a time when you're hitting the brake and it feels like you're trying to drag the vehicle behind you because the brakes are applying too hard. The natural factor is just amazing on this particular system when you got a motorhome with air brakes. Now, not all vehicles have a vacuum brake booster. Some have electric brake assist and some have a hydro boost brake assist. With those, you won't tap into the vacuum line for the booster because there won't be one on those vehicles. Instead, you would just plug up the exhaust port here. Now you'll see here on top it says exhaust do not cover. You don't want to cover this if you're using the regular vacuum systems. That's just for those few vehicles out there that don't have that vacuum booster. So here we are inside and you can see the cylinder. It clamps around our brake pedal here. And when air pressure is sent from the motorhome to the unit we just saw under the hood, it comes out of that unit, down the hose here, to our cylinder to apply to activate the pedal. Once this is pressurized, the cable here at the back of our cylinder is connected to the firewall, and it will use that to pull the pedal towards the firewall. You'll also notice that there's a small sensor here on top of our cylinder, and that's the read switch that lets us know when the cylinder is being activated. This system comes with a coach link, which is a wireless unit, which is an upgrade over the older traditional Air Force One styles that had a monitor light that was just on the back side of the mirror. This one actually gives you a monitor light that's inside your motorhome, so it's a lot easier to see. The traditional style with the one on the mirror, you would typically have to look at your rear view camera to be able to see it when flat towing your motorhome. And sometimes, on your motorhomes, you just don't have the best lighting and stuff like that. Maybe the angle's not great where you can't see the light, or maybe you just don't pay attention quite as much to that rear view camera as you would the dash mounted coach link that this has. The coach link also has a buzzer on it, so if the pedal stays, the cylinder here stays activated for an extended period of time, it'll beep at you to let you know, hey, your brakes are still applied. You might need to take a look and see what's going on. Or if you're pressing the pedal down, you'll just know, hey, okay, I'm holding the pedal down, that's why it's beeping. But if you're not holding the pedal and that's going on, that's a good warning that, hey, I need to pull over, I need to see what's going on here. So I like that you get all that active feedback from it. We'll head into the motorhome so you can take a look at the coach link. So now we're inside of our motorhome here. We've plugged our coach link into the 12-volt outlet here on the dash, and we've got it just sitting right up here on top of our dash. So it's right in front of us so we can get clear feedback right in our peripherals at all times while driving to know if this is working. And here we've got our unit. You got your power light so you know that it's working when you plug it into your outlet. And then here on the right, you've got your brakes applied indicators. I'm going to go ahead and press the brake pedal now. And it applied in our vehicle behind us, and it turned the light on. I'm going to keep holding it so we hear the buzzer. There's our buzzer there. So I'm going to let off the brake, and you'll see the light go out. But if you let off the brake at home and your light doesn't go out, and more than likely what's going to happen is this buzzer is going to start going off on you. You know, hey, I got something sticking there in the back holding my brakes applied. But when I let off here, you see that the brakes go right off. So everything's working properly with our system, but I like that you do get that buzzer feedback because it can be really useful if you just tap your brakes driving on the highway, maybe to turn off your cruise control or something, and then you're not even paying attention that this light's on here. All of a sudden it beeps and you go, oh no, my brakes are still applied. I need to pull over. So I like that you get that feedback. If you don't like the feedback and you find that maybe when you're driving around in traffic areas and stuff where you're holding on the brakes for quite a long time, you don't want to listen to that beep, you can flip the unit over here onto the back and you can turn the buzzer off here. So I do see where this could be useful, especially if you're in traffic where you know you're going to be holding on the brake for a while. You don't want to listen to that, go ahead. But otherwise, I think it's a good idea to leave that turned on so you get that kind of audible feedback for any emergency situation. So we've gone ahead and covered some features of our Air Force One system, but there are a lot of other braking systems out there. So the first thing that we wanted to talk about was about how it's really great for if you have air brakes on your motorhome. But if you don't have air brakes on your motorhome, there are systems like Demco Stay and Play Duo. That's a fantastic permanently installed braking system just like the Air Force One. And that's my top pick if you have not regular hydraulic brakes on your motorhome. If you have air brakes though, then the Air Force One is my top pick. But there are some good portable systems out there if you have a couple of different vehicles, and that's where those can really shine, is if you got more than one vehicle. Because maybe you want to bring your truck sometimes for certain things. Maybe if you're doing a little bit of off-roading in that area where you're planning on traveling to. But maybe you're going to go to a city in another area and you've got a smaller vehicle that you like to bring along for when you're traveling to those areas. Blue Ox's Patriot. There's the Patriot 1, 2, and 3. The 3 is the latest version. That's their latest and greatest. And all 3 of those versions are all excellent portable braking systems. What's great about those is they are completely inertia based. So they don't get the braking signal like a permanently installed braking system would, like the Stay and Play. So they still will work with air brakes. Those Patriots they'll still work with air brakes, because if you're using an engine brake, you're not actually getting a braking signal. It's working purely off of that inertia. So it may activate the first time it starts to slow down, but once the inertia sensor kind of levels out, it would let off the brakes. So the Patriot's a great system for just about every vehicle if you're planning on having more than one. The problem that I find though with the portable systems is that you have to set them up every time you want to use them. You got to get the thing out, you got to plug it in, hook it on the pedal, you got to plug in the power to it, You got to go through its little cycle features to make sure it's all working properly. That's a lot of extra time and setup. And then it's something that you have to store when you're not using it, because when you're driving the vehicle, you got to get that out of the seat, get it out of your way. With these permanently installed systems, like the Air Force One here, it's on our vehicle, ready to go. All the components are out of the way where we're never really even going to notice that they're there. We just simply plug in at the front and we're on our way. And to ensure that we're covered in the event of a catastrophic disconnect, there's a breakaway switch that's included with your kit. And if we pull the pin, it will take air that stays stored inside of the operating unit, and it will use that pre-charge that it got from our motorhome here to apply the brakes. Now you're only going to get about 1 or 2 pull pins of application here, but that's plenty because you only really need the one if you have that disconnect. The cable that's here is attached to our motorhome, so it would pull the pin out of the breakaway here, and that would apply to our vehicle's brakes here to help it come to a safe stop. And that completes our look at Demco's Air Force One supplemental braking system.